Hello and welcome to the Astro Garden, a place for astrologers to chat all things astro. I'm your host Janessa of By Jove Astrology. Thanks for tuning in. All right. Welcome, Sonia, to the Astro Garden. Today, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you. It's so lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's so great to have you. I have Sonia Geary here today. You might know her as Celestia Astrology. Sonia is a good friend of mine. We've done some collaborations together. And yeah, I guess, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, where we can find you, a little about maybe just a quick blurb about your work?
Yeah. Well, I'm studying Hellenistic astrology, so I'm a certified Hellenistic astrologer, which is how Janessa and I met through Adam Ellenbass's Nightlight Astrology. So we're both year 2, year 3 masterclasses, doing all the studying that we can, and you can find me at Celestial Astrology. So I'm now moving more into the traditional astrology side, but I have a background in modern astrology, which is where I started, so I can bring that in when I see it relevant in charts. And I do a lot of work with mindfulness, astro mindfulness, and astro coaching as well. So I have a YouTube channel, Celestial Astrology, where I offer astro mindfulness that aligns with the moons, with the new moons and the full moons. And I just offer that at the moment. And Janessa and I work together on a collective astrology project called Ask, Astrology via Kairos. And we do gatherings, don't we, for the equinoxes and the midpoints in between. And we offer up like a chance to pause and just celebrate those moments where people have forgotten like the significance of that astrology as well. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram. I stick to Celestial Astrology for everything, and I've just started a Substack and Apple podcasts and Spotify podcasts. I'm trying to spread my net and see where the audience is that will find me, who wants to listen to the astro mindfulness, I suppose.
That's great. Yes, all the platforms. I think that's a good strategy at this point.
It's hard to know where the people are who want to hear it, so.
Yeah, I think everyone has their little like niche or, what works for them. I know, like, I listen to a lot of podcasts on YouTube, but, not necessarily needing the video. I think it just depends on what works best with your technology setup and so many options nowadays.
Yeah, and I spoke to a friend and he's like, oh no, I only listen on Spotify, I don't do YouTube. So it's like, okay, I'll try and set up Spotify then, and so that he can listen in, and then others are finding me there. So yeah, you've got to be willing to try all these things. And I think with Pluto and Aquarius, maybe that's kind of where we're going, but whether we'll all convene into one place, it would be nice if we could find a place where we could launch ourselves and not have to spend all our time copying and pasting and sending it out, because I really just want to concentrate on the astrology.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of shocking to see how much, like, as I've learned more too, like how much goes into the production and the all the behind the scenes work just to share like a small thought on the weather or anything like that.
Yeah, it's so much effort, and sometimes you just think, no, I don't have the time to do all the extra that comes with it, even though there's a spark of a thought of, oh, I could do that, and then it's like, no, but that's going to take 3 days,
Right.
and if there isn't the time to do all of that production work, it's like, I just want to do the astrology, really.
Right. Well, you've been great taking it on for the group, for our Asteri Sophia Kairos group. That's been awesome. Sonia is kind of like our IT person in the background and doing a lot of like our reels and setting up a lot of that stuff. So she's becoming a professional, I would say, in reel creation.
It's a steep learning curve, but I'm getting there. The captions on Instagram are evading me at the moment. It's like sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I do the same thing, and I don't understand what's going on with that. But
Yeah, I've had a similar experience, I think, with Instagram too. It's always changing.
yeah, it's like hard, and you're like, this is it's a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm
Well,
building, so it's a process, and that's the way I
yeah.
look at it.
Yeah. Well, let's jump in and get going here. I'd love to hear about kind of like your whole journey with astrology. I know I've heard bits and pieces. I would really love if you could share, you know, like how you found it initially and what really like drew you in. Kind of share your story.
Yeah, I kind of blame it a little bit on my cat. I adopted a little cat, and it was a very difficult time for me. Pluto was in Capricorn, and that's my ninth house. And we had a lot of family difficulties, and it was sending me very lower into a bit of a spiral. And I was asking a lot of ancestral type questions of myself and doing a lot of exploring. And I noticed that my cat was very in tune with the moons and the lunations. And he like goes into a like regresses to a kitten, you know, when they have that mad half hour, but it lasts all night, and it would be on a full moon or a new moon. So he and I both attuned ourselves to the moons at the same time, and I was like, okay, there's something in this. So I was exploring that deeper at the same time as I was asking these deep questions of myself, but my mental health was sinking lower. And as I was exploring, I was picking up on people talking about the astrology, and so I started to explore my own. And when I pulled up my birth chart and found what was in there, it really hit me. It was like, how can all of this, like my journey and like really significant things that happened when I was really young, when I was 7, my first Saturn square, and like a really significant thing that quite traumatic that happened in my family. How is this shown in the birth chart? How can that be? And it just drew me in deeper and deeper. So rather than the other things that I was also exploring at the time, this astrology path just really drew me further and further with all these questions that I had. And it was like, I have to learn more. It was like, it wasn't enough just to have my birth chart and Google, what does an Aries moon mean? Or what does the moon in the 12th mean? Or, you know, what does the moon applying to Saturn mean? And it was like, you can Google what do these things mean, but you kind of need an astrologer to put it all together and to look at it in the context of your chart. So I was just getting deeper and deeper down this astrology rabbit hole of okay, I need to learn more, I need to learn more. So I started going to webinars whenever there was like free content available online, just self-teaching in that sense. And one day I went to a Rebecca Gordon webinar, and it was on the moon. So it was like perfect for me. And at the end, she was promoting her intermediate course. And I'd already done a beginner's course, but it was very basic. It was very, very much, these are the planets, these are the houses, and what they mean. But I was still in that place where I couldn't synthesize a chart. And I was thinking, no, this isn't for me. I'm not intermediate, not by a long shot. And at the end, she was like, no, it is. If you've done any kind of beginner's course, we'll be covering all that ground again, you know, sign up. I was just drawn in again. And I was just, is it for me? She's talking to me. It really felt like she was. So I signed up. And it was only afterwards that I realized that Pluto was literally applying within 3 degrees of my MC at that time. It was like quite a significant moment in my 9th house of higher learning. So that was my time. You know, I feel being really called to astrology. So I did, and that was modern astrology. So I did that course with intermediate, with modern astrology, but I really was still coming away left with questions. I didn't understand the why things were so. I was taught, okay, if this is this, then you say that. And I was listening to Adam Ellenbass. He was a tutor barber at the time, and he was giving that more depth in his delineations and what he was offering, and the more archetypal meanings. and I was enjoying his podcast, but I was also listening to the astrology podcasts and Michael O'Brien and people who had, like, it felt like more accuracy and more intentionality, and Hello Astro as well, and following her tweets and Kira, and these people were really inspiring me. So it was like, okay. And I had a reading with Joe G, and he was like, why aren't you doing traditional? And I was like, that's a really good question, why aren't I? And it was like, I'm just searching for my teacher. I think I'll know when I find it. And then when Adam did his, when he was starting his course, Traditional Astrology for the Modern Mystic, and he was doing the promos, and I was still considering a couple of courses at the time, and I was even considering evolutionary astrology still, and deciding which way am I called. And then he just said that one line, I'll teach you the why. And it was like, this is where I belong.
Yeah.
And it was just that bit, and it was like, yeah, okay. And I signed up straight away then. That was just what I needed to hear, that because that was the thing that was in my mind, was like, I don't understand why. How can I do this if I don't? Yeah, I've learned it by rote almost, that this here means that, and I'm telling people, but I can't explain it. I don't understand it, not fully. And it was the fact that Adam was offering that teaching at that level and that depth that really spoke to me. That yes, I'm going to understand this at long last. There is a meaning, there is a reason. So I signed up for him, and we recently did a YouTube together, didn't we? Where we all went through our astro journeys, and I looked at my zodiacal releasing, and for each stage of my journey, I was so excited to find that at the first stage it was a level 4 releasing, and then a level 3. But when I certified with Adam, it was a level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And it was like, oh, I knew it. I felt it in my heart and my soul. But to see it in my zodiacal releasing that confirmed that was a peak period for me, that was me on my path. I was exactly where the heavens wanted me to be. It was like, you kind of know it when you feel it, when you're on the right path. But it's so nice to see it validated in your charts and in your astrology as well. So yeah, I'm really happy. I'm continuing my studies with Adam because I know that I've found my teacher.
That's so.
Does that answer the question? I kind of got a bit lost there, but
no, yeah, that's totally exactly what I was asking. I'm so curious, like, about growing up, or like what your first experiences were with astrology. Like, did you read horoscopes in a magazine, or was it ever on your radar as a young girl? Or I'm just curious. I've always what that's like for people.
Yeah, it's funny because I always knew I was a Leo, and I think my childhood was difficult because in a way, like, I loved the drama, and I signed up to a drama club, but then it was problematic. It wasn't easy for me, and I was like, well, am I Leo? But I'm on the cusp apparently of Virgo because I'm at 29 degrees. So it's like, okay, well, maybe I am more Virgo because there is this practical, pragmatic side of me that gets organized and does all the things. You know, when we plan our meetings, I'll have the script ready, or, you know, even if we abandon it, I'll have that side that's planned ahead and, you know, ready before the deadline and everything, which isn't terribly Leo. So I think understanding that as well of how those anaretic degrees work, you know, where you're ready to go into the next sign, and also where there's that malefic element, you know, where it's ruled by Saturn or Mars there, that made a lot of sense as well, understanding how that can work at that degree. So why I'm not fully Leo, why I don't rush ahead and lead everyone. I kind of lead from the back if I do lead. You know, it's like I sort of wait, and I think, well, if something needs saying, I'll say it, but I'll wait to say it. I don't rush to the front and say, hey. It's just me in a Leo kind of fixed way, but I'll be more flexible and just watch and wait and see. And then if I can see we need a bit of steering, I'll offer it, but quietly in a Virgo kind of way of, well, I have prepared all these lists, you know, which I can offer to help.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I suppose growing up it was that confusion of, am I Leo? No, I didn't see myself as Leo. So I would read the Leo horoscope, but it didn't really resonate.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think astrology was for me. So it was actually, a neighbour lent me the birthday book, that great big, I don't know if you've seen it, that big astrology book. And it,
That one.
no,
Mm.
his wife had been into astrology and she had it, and he was like, oh, you know, you might want to read this. And I was like, oh, I don't know, it's not really for me. And that did spark a bit of curiosity there, because there was a bit more depth and a bit more sun, moon, rising, and how you're a combination of all of those. And that was another reason I got my chart up, and what is my moon, and learning about Aries moons. And it was like, yeah, okay, that's a bit more me. And the rising sign being Taurus, it's like, yeah, okay, I can see that in myself, that pragmatic sign that meets with my Virgo as well. It's like, yeah, okay, I can see how I'm a combination of those. I'm not just Leo.
Right.
Where the Leo didn't really resonate, but as I understood that we're a combination of all these things, we're our whole chart. We've got all of the 12 zodiac signs within us, and we display all of those at different times and experience them all as the moon passes throughout the whole month. We experience the ups and downs of those placements. It's like, oh, I get it now. And it's just this wonderful unraveling of the astrology. It's like the sun sign horoscopes don't do us much of a favor, really, do they? And I understood, I think it was Rebecca that said that the sun sign horoscopes only started really in 1939, when Princess Margaret had a reading, a sun sign horoscope written for her. And because that caught on, that's when they became popular. So they're a very recent thing, really. And before then, I suppose it was only for people who had the money to have their whole chart read that did, or had their sun, moon, rising, and had that wider view. For us, and then the sun signs caught on, but then there's a lot of people that are alienated by it, or think, well, it can't be 1/12 of the population all having this kind of day. And that's so true. And then it becomes so general that it could apply to anything. So they're kind of hard to write, aren't they? They kind of, I had a stab at it once, and it's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. I try to tell people, like, that's one of my soapbox things. It's like, just read it for your rising sign. You know, I don't know how else you could write a horoscope other than like for a rising sign to be able to speak to what areas of life are going to be affected by the astro weather. You know, there's no other way of coming up with it. I mean, maybe the sun, but the sun only changes every, you know, roughly 30 days or something. So it's, yeah.
And then, of course, in the UK here, a lot of people don't know their birth times, so they don't know their rising sign, which is another problem that we have. Or they're not sure, you know, you could place it if they were born like in the middle of the month, or, you know, if in the middle of that moon, like spending 2.5 days, if it was right in the middle, then you could get a good rising sign. But if it was near the moon moving into a sign or out of a sign, it's difficult. They could be one or the other. But sometimes you can tell between characteristics and the way they lean what their rising is. But other times it's harder.
Oh, it looks like you're frozen here.
Oh, no.
Let's see. All right, we're back after a little technical glitch. But yeah, I guess another question I like to ask is, what was maybe your first book that you bought as an astrologer for your studies? Or if you don't want to say that one, you could share maybe your favorite that you've purchased so far.
Ooh. Yeah, I think I went and just bought a load all at once. So it's hard to say which was actually the first. I kind of went onto eBay and looked at like the secondhand ones. a favourite is hard. I probably would say it's a toss-up between Dimitri George's like volume 1 that we study with, because there's so much amazing stuff in there. I'm still finding things that we go back to and learn from. And then the fixed stars book, because I really do love the fixed stars, and that's like a gift that keeps giving as well, when you see a placement and learn more about the star and how that relates and expands the delineation. And then when you speak to the person, and that's
sorry, is that Demetria's book, fixed star book?
I've got Bernadette Brady's.
Oh, okay, nice.
I've got 2 of hers actually, the Book of Fixed Stars, and then she's got star and planet combinations. So she writes about, like, if you've got Regulus with Jupiter or something, and how that might manifest as well. So they're really useful as reference guides. If I'm preparing a chart, I'll look at the stars and look at how they're showing up. And Adam's just done a fixed star masterclass, which I was waiting a long time for and very excited about. So it was nice to see how he suggests we actually use them, because I don't use them a lot in my readings unless they're really, really prominent and really have something to say, because I wasn't totally confident on how they should show up. So it was only if I was doing like a free reading for family or friends or something that I'd really bring them in. So I'm a bit more confident now to include.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little more about your practice? So you've kind of developed your own take on astrology with, you offer readings, but then you also have this astro mindfulness that you've kind of come up with, and astro coaching.
Yeah, I really love that, because the reading is like an hour and a half. And if somebody's new to astrology, it's a lot, so you have to really pull back and mind your language. And that's something I've found difficult, because we're taught in this astrology language, which is wonderful. And the bit that's missing that we're starting to do in year 3 is how to translate that back into a language that your client's going to understand. And obviously people come to you with different levels of astrology knowledge. But if somebody knows absolutely nothing, it's really pulling it back to, okay, this is Mercury, and Mercury is a planet of communication, and trying to tie that into how that's going to work in their chart. And people can struggle to really understand that. So it's finding ways around communicating with each person that's in front of you, and finding the best way. Do they want to be taught? I've found that I go naturally into a teaching style. I want to empower the person to be able to go away and look at their chart again and keep learning more about themselves, so that they understand that, okay, my Mercury is here, and what that means for them, rather than only having what was said in that hour. But I do ask them if they want that, or if they want me to just tell them what I see. Do they want me to tell them why I'm seeing it, or just tell them what I see? So they do have the choice to turn that teaching element off. But so far everybody's gone for it. I think that option to be empowered to go away, to have your chart and to look at it and to find out more yourself, is a brilliant option. And then I came to mindfulness first. That was one of the tools I was given when I was struggling with chronic illness. I say when, I still am struggling with chronic ill health. But after years of different types of therapy, I went on a fairly short course of mindfulness, and that was really the thing that made the difference for me. After all the different, much lengthier therapies and everything that I was offered, that was something, again, that feeling of empowerment. It was something that I could do for myself. I wasn't dependent on a therapist. I wasn't dependent on a doctor or a medication. It changed my mindset and gave me a tool that I can then use. It's always with me. I can use it in any situation. And I was like, this is really brilliant. And it changed my life in that sense and gave me a turning point in my own mental health, and also in the way that I looked at my illness and the challenges that I was facing. So it's something that I studied further, and I did a certification in professional mindfulness as well, a therapeutic mindfulness certification. And I'd also studied coaching, and I understood I had a reading with an astrologer, Dan Waits, and he looked at my zodiacal releasing and he said, in 2016 you studied something but you didn't fully manifest it. And again, it's validating to hear that, because I was disappointed in myself that I didn't take it further. But the time wasn't right, my health wasn't right, my circumstances weren't right, and it didn't really come to anything. But I got certified as a wellbeing coach, and I wanted to help people in my situation. And it seems that it's all come together now with the astrology, that I can use the astrology combined with coaching, go much deeper into somebody's chart to look at a placement that they might be struggling with, and also look at the goals of where they want to go to. And we use very specific ways of working with the client in coaching, is to really focus in on, like we use this analogy of the bus stop that you're at, because people have a lot of stories around why they're at the place that they're at, and it's very much okay, but you are here. Whatever those stories are, let's start here and let's look at the next place in the journey, because you might be looking at a bridge that's taking you to another country. That might be your long-term goal, but to get there you've first got to travel to the next bus stop. That's the immediate goal. And then you can look at the chart and the transits that they're in and the current moon lunation, and really support somebody to get to that next bus stop. It's just, what actions would really work for you at this moment. There might be 10 possible actions they could take, but there's one that's really supported by the astrology right now, and that's going to be the easiest one for them to take, because it's in flow with the universe. They're supported. Another action that they might be more drawn to would be really challenging and might not work right now, but it could work in 6 months' time. So we're working really deeply with the chart, and it's really powerful and really effective when you do that. And you're not saying these actions won't work for you, you're just saying, let's time it right. Let's get you to that place, that over that bridge into that other country, but let's really zero into this bus stop that you're at, the next bus stop that you've got to get to, that just one next step, and really focus in on getting you there, because that's how the journey, like I said, the journey of 1,000 steps begins with the first step. And let's look at those barriers that you've got to that first step, and let's find what's the easiest action that's going to move you forward right now. And if they can take that one step, then it becomes exciting. They see how that journey can start to unfold, and like I say, it just becomes really powerful and exciting to work with somebody in that way, and to use their astrology in that way. It's an honor to do that work. And then the mindfulness as well can come in, because sometimes they've got those mental blocks. They've decided who they are. We recently were talking about the Unshaming the Signs podcast that I recommend people watch, that different signs have given themselves a story that maybe they experienced in their youth, that certain signs, like for me, Leo's too loud, you should shush, you shouldn't shine as yourself. And it's like realizing that, it is okay to be yourself. It is okay for me to be excited about this, and to tell people about it. And sometimes I see people's eyes glaze over. I start to talk about astrology, that it's like, no, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to let that shush me and make myself smaller because of it. I'm going to just love it still, even if other people around me don't love it. That's okay, because I love it. I'm going to allow that to shine through me regardless, and I'm going to talk about it.
I love that.
And hopefully hopefully the right people will be attracted to come and work with me, and and I can pass some of that on to them, that shining that through that sun and that ability to just bring that warmth to people of, this is what we can achieve if we work together. Do you want some of this? And it's like, this is what's on offer. And it's like, yeah, I don't have to be ashamed. I don't have to hide in a corner or anything. I shouldn't shout about it. So yeah, here I am, happy to talk about it.
Yeah, that's great. Could you tell us, I've experienced your astro mindfulness in our Ask gatherings, our Asteri Sophia Kairos plug here for that.
Yeah.
But can you describe to us, for those who may be not less familiar with what mindfulness is or what a mindfulness session might be like, could you, in words, try to describe that?
Yeah, I mean, it would be different one-to-one because, again, it depends on the person and what they're, I mean, it can help treat things like anxiety and addictions, or just anybody who wants to calm down that mental chatter in your mind, because our minds are very much processed to like fight or flight or to deal with problems, and quite often we ruminate on a lot of these problems. And what we're learning in mindfulness is just to observe that mental chatter and to realize the mantra that I really took away from mindfulness is that thoughts are not facts, that you can separate all these thoughts away from the actual facts, and that on a different day your thoughts are going to change, but the facts remain the same. So you're aware of the facts of the situation, and you're aware that your thoughts are changing all the time with all these different events that happen that may or may not be personal, but the facts still stay the same. So you're bringing yourself into the present moment, and you're being very aware, and you use your breathing really consciously as your anchor. And over time, as you practice it regularly and you tune into that breathing that just brings you into that moment, it calms down everything within your system, everything that's on high alert, trying to problem solve all the time, trying to find solutions. And you just say, it's okay. I'm here now, I'm present, everything is fine. It's just, I don't have to solve this problem right now. I mean, sometimes obviously there are problems that we do need to solve, and in that case, we go ahead and solve them. But it teaches you to discern between the problems that, okay, this one I do need to solve right now. This is a problem I've worried about for 2 years. It can stay in its box.
Yeah.
I don't, worrying about it for an hour a day is not going to find me any new solutions. So there's various different mindfulness exercises that have been taught, and there's many mindfulness practitioners on YouTube and various other places that are a lot better at me and been doing it a lot longer. There's mindfulness courses, and I'm hoping to start one of my own, because the way I do it, again, is to bring it into the astrology so that you're aligned with the present moment and the present energy. So for the moment, the Pisces new moon, and we've got coming up the lunar eclipse, and just to help you sink into what's going on right now and what might this astrology bring forward for me. What challenges might I face? What gifts might I face? And if you tune into that mindfulness exercise, you're a bit more prepared for what's going to be coming up in the next 2 weeks. And then hopefully for people, they'll then recognize it if it happens, if that challenge does come up for them, or if that gift comes. They recognize it because they've practiced it in that deep state of relaxation. And then they're like, oh, right, that was what it was. Even if it didn't mean anything in the moment. You might have met Chiron in one of my meditations and had a moment of healing with him. But then something happens and you realize, this is the healing moment. This is what that was all about. I've practiced this, and maybe return to the meditation and with the event in your mind of, right, okay, yeah, I get it now. That's how I use them. And it's because I was like looking for something like that for myself, and I couldn't find anything like it on YouTube. So I started just planning them out for myself, really, just like, okay, this is the energy, this is what I want to do. And then I had a client that I was working astro coaching with, and she was like, well, can you record it for me as well? So I was recording it for her, and it was a time when Mercury was in Virgo, and I feel like he was like giving me that little push, push, push. Come on, well, if you're recording it for her, and I was trying to find a way to share it with her, like recording it on my phone, and then I couldn't send it to her. And it was like, okay, so somehow I ended up with this YouTube channel to like share it privately with her, and he was like, oh, why just share it with one person?
Right.
Just make it public. So it's like, okay. Big scary thing that I wouldn't normally have done, but yeah, suddenly before I knew it, and in no time at all, like normally I would have planned this and thought it out and probably spent 6 months worrying about it, but literally in the space of a few days, from that spark of her and I discussing what I did and her saying, can you share it, it was suddenly, oh my gosh, there's a celestial astrology YouTube channel.
That's so cool. That's just such a great, I don't know, example of the astrology like literally playing out in your chart in real time. And yeah, Mercury in Virgo.
Yeah, and it's my 5th house as well. So it's like, yeah, just pulling me to like, okay, do this creative thing. You know, you're making it up, you're telling this story, you're pulling in all the astrology and making a journey out of it. So share it, you know.
Yeah, that's so cool. What was I going to ask you next? Oh, I'm curious if you, and if you're not comfortable sharing, because I know it can be hard to put out there, like thoughts that might be in flux still, or and I know for me that this question is always difficult to answer and changes maybe daily, but what are your thoughts on how astrology works, or what's your philosophy on it in general? I'm curious if you're willing to share.
Yeah. Well, we had that was kind of why we added Kairos, wasn't it, when we were thinking of the name for Astero Sophia Kairos, the wisdom of the moment in time. And I really feel like that, because we found, like, even when we've tried to elect a chart, and then when we've looked at our astrology, I've got a procedure coming up, and then at first I was like a little bit worried because it's on a Mars day, and then I look at the astrology and Saturn's in a benefic enclosure, which is like, oh, that's perfect, and it chimes in my chart perfectly, and it's a great day. And it's like sometimes the astrology has just got us anyway, whether we plan and work for it, or whether it just happens and falls that way. And I think that is the Kairos element, that divine timing. That's what Kairos means. It is that moment in time that's just perfect. I suppose that's my philosophy on it, is that it is an element of the divine, that these planets are, I mean, it blows my mind, that thing that there's never that same alignment of planets again. That they're constantly moving and shifting, the dance of the spheres, and they're never the same. And I'm constantly learning and embodying and going out and sitting in the garden and just looking at them and looking at the stars and trying to work with them. I have a daily practice with the planets, just trying to feel into that energy of them. And I think the closer we get to them, the more they reach out and try and reach us too. But at the same time, they're divine in that nature in the sky, and we're in this embodied earthbound soul that's living this earthly life. We're here to experience things, but we can be a voice and a translator for them. So where am I going with this? I suppose I just find that so exciting. I don't know that I understand it fully yet. Like you say, that it's a thought process, but I think that we can trust it, that it's unfolding for us, that we're not meant to know it all, but that it is a language. It's a way that they communicate with us. And I found a Bernadette Brady quote on the astro.com I shared on my Twitter, which is that astrologers are the guardians of this divine language that they offer us, of this sacred sky. And I thought, oh yeah, that's it. That's us. That's what we do. We're kind of the guardians for our generation, and then we pass it on as we teach other astrologers coming through. We're kind of, the baton gets passed from generation to generation, but we're all guardians of this sacred language. But that it is that translation, that they're there, they speak to us, we can see them. They're like physical in that sense, although we can't like bring them to earth, but they can speak through us. We have these physical bodies, and we have this ability to share their knowledge, their wisdom, their insight, what they're telling us. Like, we can literally speak it into being and share it with others. And that's kind of our job. Once we're called to it, it's like you can't say no, can you? It's like you go into this rabbit hole and you think you're just learning for yourself, and then you come out the other side, and before you know it, you're certified and an astrologer. And it's like, that was never my intent.
Right.
I didn't go into it planning to be an astrologer, but it happened. And as I understood my astrology, I was like, okay, this is what I'm meant to do. This is where I'm meant to be. And it was like a gentle unfolding process of being shown, this is your path. This is what you're going to do. And it was like, okay, it's not something you say no to if that's what you're shown. So, yeah, I suppose that is my philosophy, that there is that divine timing, that those planets are there and they show themselves to us at different times of the year. You can see Venus rising or setting, and Mercury is hard to see, but I've seen him once. Other planets are harder to see, like Saturn, so far away. But if we look hard and we know when to look, Jupiter is so beautiful when he's near the moon, and you can use those apps like Stellium and or what's the other one? Astro. There's free apps, isn't there?
Yeah. I think I have the Stellium one.
Yeah. And there's Astro Sky or...
Oh, Stellarium is the one that I use. But yeah,
there's plenty of free apps. So you can go out, even if you don't know what you're looking at, and just point this app at the sky and it will tell you, if you see a particularly bright star, quite often it can be a planet. It might be Jupiter or Venus, because they're both quite bright in the sky if they're visible. And the fact that we can actually see them and just sit there for a moment, just breathing them in, is just so wonderful to me. And then we can look at a chart and see what they're saying as well. It's to translate that language. It just excites me so much. It's like a living, breathing thing. It's not just studying dry books and ancient languages, but that also excites me, that these ancients, so many years ago, have this understanding and wisdom that's still relevant to us today, and these archetypes that we can still see playing in our lives, although the specifics might be different. But the archetypes, how they played out in lives, still are very relevant. The delineations that they use still apply to our lives. It's like there's nothing else like it. There's no other science that goes back as far as ours. I call it a science. I know that's very controversial, and it's been debunked as a science, but to my mind it started as a science, didn't it? Astronomy and astrology together were the first science. The stars were studied, and it informed farming and kings and everything else. So that's how it was treated, and other sciences grew out of that, from that basic knowledge. So I see that's how it started, even if it's changed. And I think it's a shame that our modern society has grown away from that. I think if we could bring it back in, it would inform a lot of things and help. As we see it playing out in the mundane astrology, I think the world would be a lot better. Even with medical science, I think, like, medical plus medical astrology could be better if the two worked hand in hand. You know, I'm not saying throw out one for the other,
Right. Yeah.
but the two working together would be so much more powerful than just one or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting to me to think about that question, because I often feel the same. And then there's a part of me, and I know other people have said this, it feels like it is meant to be hidden, or it's meant to be not of it, like not to be in the general awareness, something of like, but yeah, it's interesting to think about how it was used in ancient times and how it was probably more part of the day-to-day for the majority of people. Yeah, I think it could do a lot of good, but it's also like,
Yeah,
there's something special about it not being for everyone, or not. I want it to be for everyone in an inclusive way, but that, maybe it's okay that it's not the majority or something. I don't know.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah, because it's still sacred, and I think you've got to come to it with that respect for it.
Mhm.
And if not everybody does, if they just want to win the lottery or something, then
Right.
it's not.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think before we wrap up, I'd love to hear if you have advice for any astrologer starting out. I know I feel like you gave some good tidbits in your own personal story of like how you decided on a teacher and some of that. But if you could give any advice to someone just getting interested, or just learning about it, or on the fence, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of free resources available, so I would say search through those. But there's a lot of astrologers that aren't on these platforms as well, so and they're a bit harder to find. I Yeah, it's hard, isn't it, when you start out? I mean, we've got the Astrology Co-op is starting out. I would certainly recommend following. You can find them on Twitter and Instagram. And our philosophy is to help people who are starting out with different diverse voices, and to provide an alternative platform. We've got the Chani app. Am I saying that right, Chani?
Yep. Channy,
She's got a great book. Chani app. She's got a great book out for somebody like really starting from a beginner's place, sun, moon, rising, and understanding that. And that app uses traditional astrology, but the free app is like really informative. And Time Passages app was really good when I was first starting out as well. And then just take your time choosing a teacher, I think, because courses can be quite expensive and an investment. I mean, I know Nightlight School, I can't sing the praises high enough, and they do offer need-based tuition. So they do respect that prices are high and can be prohibitive for some. So they do like engage with you and discuss what budget you can use, and also look at what schools are offering pre-recorded courses, because that's what I did for my beginners one, and I wasn't able to ask questions and engage, and there wasn't any sort of forum where students meet. And actually that's quite valuable. I've learned a lot like from us engaging and chatting, and really turning over the material that we're learning. So I would certainly look for something that offers that student contact as well, because that's where you make friends and then you go forward in your careers together. I think we've made lifetime friends now, and as we move forward in our astrology careers, although we may go into different niches, we'll support each other, and work together on various projects and whatever. And that's quite invaluable to have that support while you're learning, because it can be quite isolating, particularly if your family and friends don't really understand what you're doing, don't share your love of it. To meet other people that are on that wavelength is so precious. That would be my advice.
Yeah. I think that's huge for learning, and for the friendship is great, but also to like help solidify the ideas, or run things by each other to make sure that you're getting it, or even just like business ideas or whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the camaraderie and the friendship has been phenomenal in terms of that too.
Yeah, it's like we had a little WhatsApp chat yesterday about besiegement and enclosures and the difference and things like that. And then once you've had that conversation, it really engages you in your mind. Whereas if I'd just looked it up in a book, I might have forgotten it again, but because we were able to have that conversation and look at the placements in the sky, it just makes that difference where you can really all put your opinions in and like work these things out together.
Yeah. And the confidence and to be able to translate it or share it to someone else too, and to not be like, well, I think I understood that ancient text from the first century or something. And yeah, to be able to actually give examples and check for understanding and build that confidence is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing, is we check each other's work, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Quite often it's like, if you're confident of something, we'll put it out. But if we're not, or sometimes it's not quite right, it hasn't hit the spot, and you've just got a feeling that it's not quite right, we can share it with each other and just say, what do you guys think? And that's invaluable as well. It keeps us humble.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah.
And it's really valuable just to have that sistership,
Totally.
That's it's like the cherry on the cake, isn't it? The course is wonderful, but to have met these friends is really precious.
Yeah, I didn't expect that going into it. I had hoped, to meet some people and maybe build a little network, but I did not expect like deep friendships that we've been able to form. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah. I mean, we said the other day, didn't we? The thing is, when you share charts with each other, it's kind of friendship on a different level, isn't it? Because there's no masks. Like, we know each other. We know.
Totally.
It's like you really do help each other, or something comes up and we look at the charts to see what's going on, and yeah, there's no pretense there. It's we're all our authentic, genuine selves, and it really is a friendship like no other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very grateful for. So that's what I'd want for anybody going into astrology, really, is to have that support and have that engagement, really, because it's really made the difference for me.
Yes. Well, will you remind us again where we can find you on all of your platforms before we say goodbye?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm Celestia Astrology, and that's on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. I've got a Ko-fi page that sells the astro coaching and like a personal astrology plan. And I'll be launching a Patreon soon, which will have the astro coaching group as well. So if the one-to-one is a bit intimidating, we'll do a group where we'll be looking at the lunation cycles and what that means for us, and we'll just come into the coaching like a bit slower, because obviously it's a group environment, but I'll be launching that very soon when the astrology is right, obviously.
Right. I'm excited for that, and I'm so grateful for you being here today. Thank you so much for sharing, and yeah, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Sonia. You can find more about Sonia's work at www.celestiaastrology.com, at Celestia Astrology across all social media, and on Substack and Patreon, also under Celestia Astrology. She has a really great astro coaching workbook that I would highly recommend to everyone as part of her membership on Patreon and Substack. And she also offers her astro mindfulness on YouTube and across other platforms. For more information about my work, you can find me at By Jove Astro on Instagram, at By Jove Astrology on Twitter, and The best place to find me of all is at my website, byjoveastrology.com.